CineMama is back with another not so exciting film review, so why don't you greet me by pressing the subscribe button and the bell icon? I think that'd be great. Okay, so now that I start my blabbering, maybe it's good time for you to get your head out of your WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram or whatever you're using nowadays, thanks to the 2 words use Signal said by another 2 words Elon Musk. So to talk about it, do you guys think all this hype about data and data privacy is needed? I was pretty carefree about this data privacy and the effects of its violation at any point in our lives too, until I saw the film that I'm going to review today. Today's film is a literal manifestation of every tech-savvy individual's nightmare. In fact, I won't be overselling it if I call it the final destination film in the world of AI films. This criminally underrated film, directed by Alex Garland, holds the record for being the lowest grossing film ever to get an Oscar for Best Visual Effects. So without much further ado, and with the hope that you'll dare to touch your devices again after watching this film, I bring for you today Ex Machina. Caleb Smith, played by Domhnall Gleeson, is a young, talented coder working for the world's most famous tech organization, Blue Book, which was founded by a renowned tech genius Nathan, played by Oscar Isaac. Nathan is a pioneer in the field of artificial intelligence, but he lives alone on a ginormous estate of his own, leading a very private, secluded life. So it's just another day at office for employees of Blue Book when Caleb wins a staff lottery, which offers him to stay with Nathan at his house for a week and get a chance to work alongside Nathan on a groundbreaking project. Caleb too is immensely excited that he's getting to know a world-renowned genius up close and personal for 7 days. Not long into the film, Nathan introduces Caleb to the artificial intelligence project he's currently working upon. Despite some serious privacy concerns that Caleb faces while signing the contract, he agrees to be the part of the project with the greed of becoming an important component in the history of AI. The project is a test run of Turing test, which is said to be passed by a computer if a human cannot tell the difference between the computer and a human being. So Nathan makes Caleb the human component of this Turing test, and the computer which will undergo this Turing test will be Ava, played by Alicia Vikander, an AI robot which is being tested to determine if she has consciousness and intelligence of her own. So for Caleb, it is 7 days and 7 sessions with Ava and several meetings with Nathan where he will report his findings about Ava to Nathan, and everything Caleb and Ava do inside the experimental facility is constantly monitored by Nathan through CCTVs. Caleb goes to Ava every day, talks to her, studies her as per the needs of the project, but here's the twist. Ava, as we realize through the film, is an AI robot who can potentially pass for a human for everything a human is capable of doing. For example, a person interacting with her could fall in love with this AI robot as well as they can with a human. So like every nightmarish film which follows Murphy's law, what can happen happens here as well. Caleb and Ava actually fall in love with each other. A major shattering conflict arises in the film during power cuts at the research facility when Ava starts telling Caleb that Nathan is not a trustworthy person, but all that Caleb is a young, intelligent coder trapped for 7 days in the world's most renowned AI pioneer's estate on his order, working on his project. Who should Caleb trust? Why is Ava telling all this to Caleb, whom she just met? Is Ava right and Nathan wrong? Can Caleb help Ava escape Nathan's estate to give her the freedom she deserves? These are the questions which the film answers with a breakneck speed through its length, while keeping you at the edge of your seat as you find yourself in absolute disbelief of what happens in the film by the time it reaches the end. Ex Machina is writer Alex Garland's directorial debut. Later in the film, we discover that Nathan is obsessed with the dream of achieving the singularity, or to be specific, the technological singularity, which will be a point in time in near future, year 2045, if Ray Kurzweil's book The Singularity is Near is taken as a reference, when artificial intelligence will successfully surpass human intelligence, and Ava is closest Nathan has come till date to achieving the singularity. This near future situation is perceived and created so beautifully by Garland that by the time the movie ends, you start fearing the possibility of artificial superintelligence coming to reality this evening itself. Breathtakingly beautiful frames from start to finish, intelligent and coherent use of color in the film are other highlights of the film. To make a film come across as horror despite having no conventional horror elements involved in it is a monumental task, and Garland pulls it off impeccably. Alicia Vikander has hands down given an apex performance, so much so that you'll start thinking that it's actually a robot that has been given Vikander's face. Do have a close look at the robotic nuances in her body language and you'll end up filing a petition to give her the Academy Award that she deserved for this film that year. Oscar Isaac, best known for his work in Inside Llewyn Davis, has completely immersed himself in the role of narcissistic, alcoholic, reclusive genius who has lost a grip on sanity and reality in the process of developing a new world altogether. And last but not the least, it's Domhnall Gleeson who has the best character development in the film. It's absolutely noteworthy how his entire life story is communicated to audience in bits and pieces throughout the film, and how it makes sense ultimately of how Caleb could have been the best fit as the human element for the Turing test. All in all, Ex Machina ends up being one of those grossly underrated films which either couldn't reach the audience due to poor marketing budgets or which were too difficult for audiences to consume and make sense of. Ex Machina finds itself in the line of underrated absolute sci-fi classics like Moon, iRobot, Predestination, Imagination and Prometheus. So do let me know in the comment section below how you found this film if you have already seen it, and don't forget to leave a like on the video. Spoiler analysis of the film. I really don't understand why Ex Machina remains so awfully underexplored and misunderstood. It has extremely prominent philosophical undertones, very deservingly on the lines of Parasite and Life of Pi. It's a bloody beautiful marriage of neuroscience, philosophy, artificial intelligence, and theory of human creation. When Caleb wins the staff lottery of an internship at Nathan's residence, we observe how some of the frames are shown to be analyzing Caleb's face, his featural signatures, and so on. This is the first hint that the film drops about artificial intelligence being at the core of the film. So as soon as Caleb enters the remote mansion of Nathan, it is apparent to most of us that the entire facility is running on some sort of artificial intelligence. Do pay attention to the scene where once Caleb has entered the facility, the door closes on its own, with Caleb diminishing slowly as the doors close. This surely foreshadows Caleb's fate in the film. Initially, Nathan inducts Caleb comfortably into the facility and into the project by giving really friendly vibes, also makes Caleb live in a place without windows, which is very metaphorical to Ava's situation in the film, where she hasn't yet seen a world which is outside of the facility that she was made in. Caleb's first reporting about Ava to Nathan is very interesting, as till this point, Caleb thinks, like most of us, that the Turing test that he is being made to perform is to judge whether a computer passes for a human without knowing that they are interacting with a computer. But the Turing test here, as Nathan describes it, is being told that you are interacting with a computer, and despite this knowledge, you start discovering that the computer actually possesses consciousness as humans do. One very interesting thing that we observe after the first Ava session is that when Nathan recalls one of the things that Caleb said to him when he arrived, and misinterprets it in a way that frames Nathan as God. This suggests that Nathan in his own mind has for long been considering himself as God of AI robots, and believes he has perpetual control over them and their actions. Although this may come across as an obvious consideration, as he is the creator of potentially a new race of artificial intelligence robots who may even dream the planet in times to come. The fact that the AI robots have been imparted consciousness is where the conflict lies. A plot twist comes in when, in one of the sessions, Ava reverses a battery power into the research facility, and we realize that the power failures that the research facility seems to be getting a lot recently, as quoted by Nathan, were actually being triggered by Ava so that she can use that unmonitored time to talk to Caleb about certain things without being heard by Nathan. Now, one of the noteworthy things here is the very fact that Ava is causing these power failures herself tells us that she has the ability to manipulate humans into thinking that these power failures are happening due to some systemic error and no one is causing them. This is one of the strongest clues in the film, which tells us that there's more to Nathan and Ava than we think there is. Further in the film, we discover that Kyoko, who Caleb initially thinks is a non-English speaking human servant to Nathan, is actually one of the earlier versions of AI robots that Nathan had made before Ava. Further in the film, Caleb goes on to discover that Nathan has given certain exclusively human traits to all these AI machines, like sexuality, ability to manipulate, empathize, and Caleb starts discovering the dark side of Nathan when he strongly starts believing everything that Ava says to Caleb about Nathan. Down the line, when Caleb understands that Nathan is going to disassemble Ava after the Turing test, Caleb, during one of the power cuts, plans to help Ava escape from Nathan's captivity by reprogramming the lockdown mechanism of the research facility, which will open each and every door when Ava overloads the power system with reverse flow of a charge. But apparently, Caleb and Ava are outsmarted by Nathan as he stealthily places a camera to record the conversations that Ava and Caleb may be having during the power cuts, and he realizes that they are planning to escape. That's when, on the last day of the internship, Nathan reveals to Caleb that the subject of the Turing test wasn't Ava, but it was Caleb. He tells Caleb that he knew that Ava possessed consciousness. He only wanted to discover whether Ava can use her emotional intelligence and consciousness to use Caleb as a medium to escape out of the facility, which he successfully did. But things turn around at this point when Caleb reveals that he had executed the power failure plan the night before, setting Ava free. Realizing that his nightmare has just come true, Nathan tries to stop Ava, but to his dismay, he finds Ava and Kyoko together, waiting to kill Nathan outside of his room, and then locking Caleb inside of the facility. Ava walks out into the outer world, which she has never seen before. Now, in the entire length of the film, there are so many parallels to the world we live in. Darwin's theory famously talks about survival of the fittest. Here in the film too, we see Nathan doing several iterations of AI androids that he's making one after another, despite giving each one of them consciousness. Though the fact that he's disassembling the robots with consciousness would literally mean murdering them, the noteworthy thing remains that Nathan is the creator, the god for this artificial intelligence androids. The same way some of us humans who believe that we were created by God, Nathan keeps destroying the less perfect androids and build newer ones, hence the fittest one survives. It won't be disassembled if it is matching the requirements of its creator, that is Nathan, in case of android robots. Throughout the film, we observe that all the interactions that are happening between Caleb and Ava Ava is let out in a comparatively open space, and it is Caleb who is encased in a glass cage. Now this may be a metaphor for the actual plot of the film, that it was not Nathan who was performing Turing test on Ava and Caleb, but it was Ava who was in control and manipulating Caleb and Nathan throughout the film to ultimately set herself free out of the research facility. In one of the first reportings about Ava to Nathan, Caleb notes a pun where he says that interacting with her is almost like through the looking glass. This is another thematic metaphor which we observe in the film, as in the book Alice Through the Looking Glass. Alice walks through a mirror and looks over a huge game of chess, and eventually Alice participates in that chess as a white pawn, becomes queen by crossing onto the other side of the chess. This is the exact theme that the character development of Ava is based upon. Citing the example of a chess-playing computer, Caleb says that Turing test must deal with differentiating between the computer's ability to play chess and its ability to actually knowing that it is playing chess. Needless to say, all the manipulation that Ava does to Nathan and Caleb are the moves of the game of chess, where Ava is right now a pawn who is willing to go to the other side of the chessboard to reincarnate as a queen. This theory holds true at the end of the film too, where as told to Caleb, we see shadow of Ava having reached a busy pedestrian crossing, and the length of where Ava stands to the other side of the screen is 8 squares, just like on a chessboard. Brilliant, Alex Garland. We also observe an impeccable use of symmetry in the film, that is, the frames throughout the film are perfectly divided into equal parts. This may be signaling towards the fact that this project that Nathan is working upon is the breakthrough project that will establish the foothold of technological singularity for the world, and hence the use of symmetry across the film signifies that the events that are happening are on the boundary of artificial intelligence and singularity. Another thing that I observe in the film that is very resonant in the plot of the film is that of revenge and role reversal. After a certain point in the film, you forget that Caleb is the protagonist. Unconsciously, our focus of who the protagonist is shifts from Caleb to Ava in the last 20 minutes of the film, suggesting her eventual transformation from pawn to queen in the game of chess, with a lot of revenge accumulating within her as a result of external stimuli, that is Nathan's controlling authoritarian behavior towards sentient androids. Also, the fact that Ava kills Nathan and leaves Caleb locked inside the facility forever is a nod to the fact that Ava is essentially avenging what Nathan, who is a human, has done to all of Ava's predecessors, which we see in one scene where Nathan has dissembled, basically murdered previous AI androids despite all of them having feelings and consciousness. Talking about consciousness, Jackson Pollock's painting number 5 1948 is prominent through the film, and in fact it also sets the thematic premise for the film. The scene where Nathan is describing Ava's brain to Caleb, he describes it as impulse, response, fluid, imperfect, patterned, chaotic. All of these are actually the qualities of this painting that Jackson Pollock has made when he made the drip painting strokes neither random nor decided. Whatever the painting showcases is the conscious interpretation of the accumulated external stimuli in the unconscious brain, foreshadowing the characteristics of AI that Nathan is trying to develop. Now at one point in the film, when Kyoko actually on her own exposes her true reality to Caleb, that she is actually an android made by Nathan and how human she felt ever since he met her, Caleb starts doubting his own existence and starts doubting whether even he is human or not. Even the viewers are tricked into doubting whether Caleb is a human or a robot when we observe huge scars on Caleb's back at one point in the film. All these things lead to so much self-doubt in Caleb's mind that to check whether he really is a human, he cuts open his own wrist to see if he bleeds. This is again an allusion to the fact of how even we as humans have so less understanding about the human existence and what actually makes us human and what doesn't. Hindu religious scripture seems to have a huge inspiration behind Ex Machina, because two defining quotes used in Ex Machina are taken directly from Bhagwad Gita and serve as thematic foundation to a couple of major plot points in the film. When Caleb tricks Nathan into being drunk smashed, a semi-conscious Nathan blurts out, "In battle, in forest, on the precipice of the mountain, on the great dark sea, in the sleep, confusion, in the depths of shame, the good deeds a man has done before defends him." This is one of the quotes from Bhagwad Gita that Nathan reiterates when semi-conscious, revealing to the viewers how he actually is very cognizant of the dangers he's embracing by giving intelligence to machines, but is relying on karma to save his life in times of trouble. Another quote from Bhagwad Gita is when Caleb reiterates to egotistic Nathan what Oppenheimer said when the nuclear bombs that he created destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
This is another thematic foundation on which Nathan's character development is based on. Another religious scripture that has been hinted at in the film is when semi-conscious Nathan says, "It's Promethean man." Prometheus in Greek mythology was a titan who rebelled against the Greek gods and stole fire from them and gave it to the mankind. As a curse, the Greek gods had an eagle peck out Prometheus's liver little by little every day. This is prominently alluded to throughout the film. The reason why we see Nathan drinking alcohol incessantly, deteriorating his liver little by little, in exchange of handing over an AI breakthrough android to the mankind. As we come to the end of analysis, we can't ignore the title of the film, right? In the entire film, we observe the title of the film only once as the name of a folder that Caleb opens on Nathan's computer. Ex Machina is one part of the Greek phrase Deus Ex Machina, which literally means God from the machine. In ancient Greek theatre, the actors playing gods would be introduced from above by the means of a machine who would then go on to take power and control of all the characters in the play. So the absence of Deus in the title of the film alludes to the fact that the god that Nathan is in this film was killed by his own creations, Eva and Kyoko. This also alludes to Friedrich Nietzsche's death of God philosophy. God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of us all, that the world has yet owned, has bled to death under our knives. Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? So all in all, why I felt like reviewing, analyzing and recommending this film is because I feel in this era where we are moving towards achieving the singularity at breakneck speed, we should certainly enjoy our technological fantasies coming to reality, but at the same time we must also be mindful of the cost of it all. Like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and do share the analysis of the film with other cinephiles if you find it worth it. CineMama will see you again shortly, but don't go yet. Here's my most favorite scene from the film for you.
You feel bad for Ava? Feel bad for yourself, man. One day the AIs are going to look back on us the same way we look at fossil skeletons in the plains of Africa. An upright ape living in dust with crude language and tools, all set for extinction.